What is going to change your life is not what surrounds you, Miss Possible. It is, my dear, right in there.
Shame on you.
And welcome to the Sit Down, where we have conversations with creators from across this beautiful motherland of ours. My name is Mark Maina, a filmmaker and an all-round story lover. And today we're sitting down with Mark Maina, who's a computer scientist and a film director. So he uses these two loves of his life to be able to create cinematic experiences. And to tell you even more, his film Neophobia, where he was the writer, director, and editor, has been nominated and has won multiple awards, including 4 categories at the Udada International Film Festival, Zanzibar International Film Festival, and was also screened as the only African entry at the prestigious Cannes Film Festival in 2017. Sit down and settle in.
Neophobia is the fear of new things, or an unwillingness to even break from routine. And I'm here to tell you that the sensei of life knows that flexibility in thinking and action is what brings true happiness.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for all that amazing, intimate conversation you had over the podcast. So as we're jumping into what it has taken you to make Neophobia. Am I saying that
Neophobia.
Yeah. I mean, first question is, as a director making a fusion of some elements of science fiction and a lot of what we call special effects in a film, or thinking in that perspective, how do you come in to projects like that? How do you develop that? Is there a different way of developing those kinds of projects as a director, writer? What's that process like?
Yeah, I would say it's challenging, but I think I was lucky coming from a background of editing and doing some visual graphics. When you're writing, you know that even if people can't do it, whoever is going to be editing can't do it, I can do it. So I know it's possible. Yeah. So that is the first thing that sort of helped me, because I knew, because I was also the writer, whatever I'm going to write, I know it's possible. I know it's something that can come to fruition on the screen. But also, I would say, for me, I've always liked films that involve the audience. Like you involve the audience into thinking about the character.
Yeah.
And I think those are, for me, the most enjoyable films, where the filmmaker has put you in the perspective of the character. So they also don't know what they're going to do. You also don't know, but you're thinking like them. And it's the same, like all of Christopher Nolan's films have been a huge motivation and inspiration for my work. And in this case, it was really a simple story about a woman coming from Gishagi, the rural areas, and it's a woman who is obsessed with old routine and an unwillingness to try new things. So basically, he's stuck to doing old things and living in the old areas. So everything to her is old. Coming to a new age, coming to modernization, sort of, And for me, the inspiration mostly was, getting in touch with a lot of youths. At that time, a lot of people, like many people I used to talk to, they were not really, I didn't see people accepting themselves as they were. They were almost like wearing masks. You're this person when you're in public, and then when you're alone, you're this person. And the main motivation for the film was to tell people they should search for happiness from within. It's not like your surrounding, it's not your environment that is going to make you happy. It is within you. It starts from here, and then when you're happy, everyone in the environment, you will make them happy. So I started to model a way I can tell this story in a creative way, and not a very serious way, the way maybe Nairobi Half Life was. Because also I think Nairobi Half Life is different, but it's also someone coming from the rural trying to search for better pastures, but then gets involved in the wrong things. But in my case, it was sort of similar, but only that I was trying to mimic people who are used to doing one thing, but then they change exponentially to another thing, forgetting like where they come from. So my main idea was to try to make sure to communicate that people should balance the old and the new. And that's how I came up with this story, because I also wanted it to be psychological. I wanted the main character to feel like all of this, some of it is occurring in her head. I always love those films that you can tell like what people are thinking, that what the characters are thinking.
And when it comes to tools, a lot of people, when it comes to the approach of, it's almost like there's a lot of this that is gonna be done in post. How do you direct actors in a space where, what you're seeing here would not look like this? Something will be done. How do you direct actors in a sense where they can't see the final product? What is that like?
It's a good question, because it's something that I've been going on and off with my DOPs. I have 2 DOPs who I work with on set, and most of the time, if I know, I don't like discussions on set, like, this is what we are going to do. This is what we do. I try as much as possible to communicate everything I can before we go on set. Sometimes we even try it out with ourselves. We can act as the actors and see if it's going to work. For the actors, I think for Neophobia specifically, I just winged it, because I would say maybe there's this scene where Joyce, who's playing the main character, looks at a cabin.
For that reason, we'll just play for the audience a bit of that scene before you jump into that they're not a bit lost into it.
Have a personal session with me, Dr. Adam Akunga, and let us fix your mental issues. Every day.
Except Sundays.
What happened on Sunday?
I went to church.
These days, it's human nature to Google just about everything. A simple headache at the end of the day might turn out convincing you of a brain tumor. Neophobia is the fear of new things, or an unwillingness to even break from routine. And I'm here to tell you that the sensei of life knows that flexibility in thinking and action is what brings true happiness.
Yeah.
So there's that scene where you see Joyce looking at this carving, and the carving sort of rolls the eyes down to her chest. And then she looks up and she says, "Shame on you," and leaves. And then the carving looks at Joyce as she walks away. I believe that came up on set. It was never planned.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
it's such a prominent moment, because it's also a bit of that in the trailer. It's like, how did you do that? How did you do that?
Yeah. So we actually didn't know this was on the location. The location was the French ambassador's house. it was also connection through Mark Rigaudis, who is French. So we were able to get this modern house that had all these things. And when we were there, I arrived a few hours before like the crew and the actors. So with my production designer, we started thinking of some elements we could use, those we can hide that don't really communicate modernization, I would say. And when I saw this, I thought, because it's a comedy, how can I use this to make something funny?
Yeah.
So at the beginning, I thought maybe it could just look at her as she's walking across and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But this idea came up with that it looks like the chairman of Team Mafisi, like the way it looks.
Yeah.
So I thought, that's a very like it's something I borrowed on set, I think.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that is something that I can actually use in the film.
Yeah.
And I just had to tell because I've done this before, creating like changing eyes of different elements or of different objects. I said, okay, let's shoot it on a steady cam, and then I'll see if I'll be able to like change the eyes, create like new eyeballs to show the eyes rolling, and that's how it was. So for Joyce to communicate that to her, I just told her that the guy is gonna look at you, look at the breasts, and then look to the side when you're walking away. So you have to react. So what we did was we just, there's a crew member who was quite tall, so we sort of positioned him in the same position that we put the carving, and he pretended that he's looking at it.
Yeah.
So what we just did, I cross-matched it in a clever way to make it look like Joyce is actually talking to it.
Yeah.
But in real sense, this was like shot later on.
You know, has that experience changed? Because part of the conversation we had in the podcast is you going to Germany and getting the experience of shooting another more technical sci-fi-ish film.
Yeah.
Did that way of communication change? What do you feel like you've learned as a method? Because I felt like, because I had the privilege of watching that film, and
it's called Harriet,
yeah, and there's a bit more quote unquote green screen, there's a bit more stuff to fit in later in post-production. How was it like managing that conversation with the actor?
Let me actually start with the Neophobia as well, because there's also this scene, there's an airplane scene. You can see we put Joyce on the plane, but it's not like a real plane.
Yeah.
So we used a green sheet that we placed on the side of Joyce when she was seated actually in the room that we see her in the office. So essentially this shot, it's purely in a room, and on the other side of her we see there's a green sheet there. Someone is holding a green sheet, and we used some tracking objects on the green sheet. There were like some black tracking objects.
Yeah.
And then later on, I told her that we were gonna put her in the plane. I think Joyce was like, before the film, I had only done just one film which she had watched, which is the Machakos Film Festival Home.
Yeah.
And the home didn't have a lot of visual effects, but it was also a good film. So I don't know, she almost trusted in me in a way. Like she didn't ask too many questions, which also surprised me, because apparently I know a lot of people, if they don't understand, a lot of actors will always try to totally understand what exactly are you guys doing. So but for her, she just left it all to me. So she said, what do you need me to do? Sit here, look outside, touch. And then for us, it was just trying to capture the moment. And then when later on she saw this scene, she was like, this is how people fake things. And to go to the Harriet film, the science fiction film. So for those who don't know, the story is basically a man who is held up in an institution that will make him smart. And of course, because it's a futuristic film, they'll be using a lot of drone cameras to sort of check up on patients and stuff like this. So there was this scene that I used a lot of, like there was a drone flying around, and what I did was I sat down with the actor and showed him like our approach. It's something that through learning VFX and these elements, it helped me a lot. Even there's this place where he puts a hand and then it's scanned and then the results are on the screen. That all came down to like preparation, practicing it before, seeing if it's gonna work. So on set it was really smooth.
I mean, so for me it feels like, and like I know all films require a lot of preparation, but it almost feels like VFX films require just that extra bit of more preparedness, if I can put it that way, where you sort of have to be sure before you go on set that whatever you're dreaming is possible.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like directors, they shoot it before, like even Christopher Nolan when he was doing that turning room in Inception, they had to do it several times, shoot it on not official professional film cameras, but something that they would actually see if it's gonna work. And I feel like most of them have to make sure that it's gonna work before they engage the actors on it. Yeah.
Okay. And when it comes to like just going back to the scene, like the plane scene, I mean, what kind of technique did you have to apply so that, because at times, you know, removing green screen can it can look rather she is really not
you know, those artifacts on the edges.
How do you ensure that you get a clean image that is believable and that just works?
So for this case, in the plane scene, we had a dolly that was pulling back, which made it even more complicated because there was movement. You have to track that movement to ensure that whatever you put on the background sticks. So if it's the side of the plane, it has to stick. You have to track that movement, apply that tracking data to the object you're going to put on the back so that they look like they're moving together. Of course, the tricks of green screen, anyone can search them. Whatever color you're going to be green screen or chroma keying, you cannot have any aspect of it on the talent. So the first thing I had to make sure was the talent doesn't wear any green on her. Also, her hair should not have any green, and that was also communicated before she came on set for that scene. And then from there, you just do a trial and error, see if the green screen works. There are different ways you can do chroma keying. I used After Effects in my case, and I liked the results because if you have a high quality footage, and because I also had some tracking data to track that movement, it was not too hard like to achieve it.
Just to wrap this up, there's a conversation in the Titanic where I think the director and the visual effects supervisor was saying James Cameron kept pushing them because he wanted it to feel real. They'd have to do it in the same shot in 5-6 different ways: miniature, green screen, build it on set. so that by the time you're coming into post, you have all these things to cut with. So you always have some sense of cover up, so that if one fails, you have another perspective.
Exactly. And to just put a timeline on it, shooting took roughly 6 days. We were shooting it out of sequence, of course, because Joyce was in the middle of shooting a billboard and also a TV series in Nigeria. So at the time, I think I had to work with her time. And that is where humility has to kick in. Especially at that time, I wasn't known. I wasn't that well known. So what happened was, Joyce was well known. So I wanted to
ride on her wave.
At that time, it was very important because I knew she would bring something to the film in terms of even distributing and marketing. So also in the film that I did in Germany, I had 2 weeks to edit it, and the amount of VFX that in that film is a lot. So what happened was I started creating the VFX that I can create without shooting the footage. I started creating those. If it's something that will be on the screen, I created those, and then I applied those VFX on set. There's this scene where the patient is talking to an operating system on the computer. So that scene on the monitor, you see like there's interaction in between the actor and the operating system, and it was important to create that operating system talking before we go on set, because on set you have the privilege to move the camera the way you want. You don't have to track the shot so that you put in that effect. If it's already there, then the interaction feels normal, it feels natural, and it's much better that way. So I would advise people to look at the effects that you want to create. If it's better to do it on real set, then create it before and then apply it on the set as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking your time and giving us some detailed insight on what it takes to be a director, and a director who loves visual effects and the power visual effects gives to stories. So I appreciate you
for having me. Asante sana for having me.
If people have questions, where would they reach you? Are you on social media?
Yes. Just Mark Maina on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. So I can type here, or you can check out my demo reel. It has all my contact information. If you search Mark Maina demo reel, just on Google, Mark Maina demo reel, I think I messed around with the algorithm of Google. The first thing that comes up when you search Mark Maina demo reel, and on there you'll see my contact information.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate you. Have an amazing day.
Thank you so much. You too as well.
Thank you so much for watching, and remember you can catch a more in-depth conversation that I have with Mark Maina on his life and purpose in the world of filmmaking in our podcast. Link in description. See you on the next one.